What's up, everybody? Well, today was a busy day for me. Had to go see Venom. Let there be carnage. I'll get to that review after this, because we got lots to talk about. A lot of things happen on Monday Night Raw, and a lot of things. So that's why we're here. Welcome everybody, new and old. This is a review for Monday Night Raw Draft Night 2. So, like I said, without further delay, I couldn't talk right there. I said we got Becky Lynch. She started off the night coming out, basically saying she's playing spoilers, that she's jumping the gun, and letting everybody know that she was the first overall pick for the draft, and she was drafted to Monday Night Raw. She spoils that, but we don't know for sure because it haven't really confirmedly happened yet. But she's basically saying she's playing spoilers to it, and that it is basically all but confirmed that she is the first. She will be the first pick. And she said, she talks about how good it feels to be on Monday Night Raw, and how, and basically how she never really lost the Raw Women's Championship since she won it since she became Becky Two Belts, and that she never lost it, and that she thinks it's time for her to become Becky Two Belts once again. This will bring out Charlotte. And she also said something about being the longest Raw Women's Champion. I think that's what she was saying in conjunction with her being Becky needed to be Becky Two Belts again. Charlotte would come out and basically remind Becky that before she was Becky Two Belts, and basically as over as Becky is now, she said Becky was nothing but Becky was nothing but Becky pre-show, and that basically she still considers herself the best, better than Becky. This would bring out Bianca Belair, who basically confronts both Sasha and Becky for their actions on Smackdown. Charlotte for attacking her, and Becky for taking the cheap shot and helping Sasha win that match. And that she basically says that she feels like since they did something like that, they both feel threatened by her. And Charlotte basically was Charlotte shush her and tells her look, you the champions are trying to have a conversation here, so tell her to be quiet. She said who you think you're talking to? And before they could finish, before Bianca could finish, Charlotte's like, because the crowd started chatting, Charlotte sucks, and she was like, I can't hear you, and the arena got involved once they hear what the chant was, and so the whole arena is chanting, Charlotte sucks, Charlotte sucks, Charlotte sucks, and that was the reason why I mentioned it, because it was like a cool little nod to Stone Cold that what Charlotte's about to do, what Charlotte did next. She takes the microphone as they chat, and Charlotte suddenly go, what? What? She does her best Stone Cold impression. I'm trying to see. This breaks down into a little instigation from Becky, who was trying to instigate a fight between Charlotte and Bianca, telling Bianca that she's already beaten Charlotte so many times that she doesn't have nothing to prove to Charlotte. But Charlotte and her never fought before, and Charlotte, I think Charlotte said something to Bianca. I can't remember exactly what, but she said something to Bianca that gets Bianca like, okay, what, let's do this. And she like basically get up all in Charlotte's face, and Charlotte just like, oh, whoa, like, I'm not about to fight you. Like she ended like almost did like the one leg out of the in between the ropes, and like go on the other side of the ropes to try to like stop her, but because Alan Pierce and Sonya Deville came out and basically like trying to calm it down that they ain't give her time and Charlotte to even get through it because Bianca just stepped off and Charlotte just like whatever, all that type of stuff. They basically would make the main event be Bianca versus Charlotte. The first match would be their first match was Jeff Hardy versus Damien Priest for the United States Championship, but for some odd reason, before that match even started, they actually went to the draft. So I have to turn my paper here to see what there's the first round of the draft. The first round, we basically got what it confirmed that what Becky said was true. Becky was drafted to Monday Night Raw. She was drafted to Monday Night Raw. The Usos were drafted to SmackDown, which basically means they stay on SmackDown. Bobby Lashley was drafted to Raw, which means he stays on Raw. And Sasha Banks was drafted to SmackDown, which means he stays on SmackDown. Then we get to the first match, which is Jeff Hardy versus Damien Priest. Like I said, it was weird because Jeff Hardy already came out, did his whole music intro thing, and then they just had Jeff Hardy wait in the ring while they just did the draft. Like they accidentally meant to do the draft first, but they accidentally had the match kind of start, so they kind of had to pause it for the draft. It was like it felt kind of weird, but the match was pretty okay. I wouldn't say it was the best opener, but considering what we all got to get through tonight, get through that night, it was still a decent opener. That saw a decent back and forth game between Damien Priest and Jeff Hardy. The ending was kind of a letdown because you had Jeff Hardy basically he hit the twist of fate and the Swanton bomb, but like they tried to say like he landed awkwardly, and then he got just rolled up pinned by Damien Priest instead of Damien Priest like hitting the finisher on him. So a little anticlimactic, but otherwise a good match. Damien Priest was your winner, and he still retained the title. So we will move on to I think it was Shayna Baszler. Yeah, the second match would be Shayna Baszler versus Dana Brooke. But once again, it's like they did it again. Like once again, but before the match, they get to the second round of draft, and the second round of draft saw Seth Rollins drafted to Raw, which we kind of expect since Becky Lynch was drafted to Raw. You kind of expect Seth Rollins was going to get drafted to Raw. King Nakamura and Rick Boogs got drafted to SmackDown, which means they stay on SmackDown. Damien Priest got drafted to Raw, which means he stays on Raw. And Sheamus got drafted to SmackDown, which means he was moved to SmackDown. But then we were then we would get Shayna Baszler versus Dana Brooke. That match was pretty much a squash match, but the one thing I will say, I like that the commentary team basically went in, or Corey Graves. I don't know what their agenda is. Maybe they finally go get Dana Brooke a push to be something instead of allowing her just to be back in catering in a squash match. They because it sounded like they was trying to basically insinuate that Dana Brooke is they basically sound like Corey Graves was insinuating that Dana Brooke is like a lost cause, and she got the talent and all that, but she still don't know how to put it together. I feel like one of the reasons why Dana Brooke failed is because if you all remember when Dana Brooke came in, when they brought her to the main roster, they trying to tone her down, and she was bigger than what she was now. And I think that if they kept her as a powerhouse and went with that, she would have been better. But I can't dwell too long on it, right? There's a lot to talk about, and we got to get through this. So then the next match would be Mansoor and Mustafa Ali versus Humberto Carrillo and Angel Garza. This match was another good outing for Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo. I'm not super excited, but I would say I'm excited now to see what they got going for them, as I see them giving them a little bit of a push. I also hope that they not trying to bury Mustafa Ali and Mansoor, as there's potential for that too. But Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo will win this tag team match. We will get round 3 of the draft, which is AJ Styles. We saw AJ Styles and Omos gets drafted to Raw, which means they just stay on Raw. Shayna Baszler was drafted to SmackDown. Kevin Owens was drafted to Raw. And we got our first NXT call-up / draft pick of the night, which was Xia Li. She was drafted from NXT to SmackDown. Yeah, I think that was the first one of the night too. Yeah, I want to say that was round 1, round 2. Yep, that was the so round 3 was the first round that saw an NXT call-up. Which would make this was to be the third person from NXT to get called up, even though I don't consider Hit Row like a collective group of people. Like, since there was a group, they drafted them as a Hit Row group. I count them as one person. We would get a Big E promo next. Big E basically coming out saying how he's decided to be on his show, on Monday Night Raw, but that he's been going through a little bit of turbulence of this past week or so. He said, for starters, once for the consecutive second time in 2 years. Big E was drafted to a show that his friends Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston was not drafted on, and I kind of don't know why they did that. Even the crowd booed that, because it was kind of weird. Why would you put them together for a little bit only to draft Kofi and Xavier to SmackDown while Big E was drafted to Raw? And so he said that was kind of his, that's how his week started. That's how his turbulence of a week started. Then he had a grueling match with Bobby Lashley, bringing Bobby Lashley down to his knees and to prove that he was the rightful, deserving WWE champion. And that before he could even take a breath, before he could even, get a chance to breathe, and he said in typical WWE fashion, another challenger came out, and that other challenger was Drew McIntyre. So he invited Drew McIntyre out to the ring to speak his mind. Drew McIntyre would basically come out and praise Big E and basically congratulate him and tell him you are indeed deserving of being the WWE champion. But he goes on to how he said, you did kind of win it by cashing in on an injured Bobby Lashley, but then again, nobody likes Bobby Lashley, and you did us all a favor, so he let it go. But then Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode would come out. They basically, with Dolph Ziggler basically asking for an thank you and he reminded us that he was the one who got, who set Big E. He's trying to say he's the one who set Big E and Drew McIntyre on this path. And what he was talking about was how he, that whole storyline when he became world champion. He had that whole storyline with AJ Lee. That was when we first got introduced to Big E, or at that time Big E Langston. Then how he was the one who brought Drew McIntyre back to the main roster when Drew McIntyre worked his way back to WWE, being on NXT, and then his call up was with Dolph Ziggler to the main roster. This will break down to them saying that making jokes and basically said that we're basically saying they're not going to give him an apology, but they do owe him a butt whooping. and this will be made into a match, which was Drew McIntyre and Big E versus Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. This would be your 4th match of the night. Yeah. And that match was actually it was good. It wasn't a bad match. It was actually an entertaining match, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah, it was really good. I can't say it wasn't. It was really good. But Drew McIntyre and Big E would get the win, and then afterwards, Big E accepted Drew McIntyre's challenge for the WWE Championship at Crown Jewel. We got a Kevin Owens promo where Kevin Owens was basically coming out to say something, but Akira Tozawa came out and basically said he didn't want to fight. He didn't want to fight Kevin Owens. He just wanted to fight Reginald for the 24/7 championship, and he got the crowd hyped to see Kevin Owens and congratulated Kevin Owens on being back on Monday Night Raw. Then he said all that, but then Kevin Owens was like, he handed Kevin Owens the mic back, and Kevin Owens was like, really? And then he just tossed the mic and stunners Akira Tozawa for his troubles. We will get round 4 of the draft. That saw Street Profits being drafted to Raw. Obviously, I even said that on the Smackdown review I did, that it was most likely that the Street Profits was going to get drafted to Raw, or that it was either that or they was going to split. It still had Montez Ford go to Raw, but had Dawkins stay on SmackDown. But we end up getting the Street Profits to stay together. So far, we'll get to that part in an important minute. But so far, the only tag team that was split up was the New Day again. The Viking Raiders was drafted to SmackDown. Finn Balor was drafted to Raw, and Ricochet was drafted to SmackDown. This round in itself was the only round that every person that was announced was a person that shifted a brand. I just want to point that out there, that the brand that was this was the only time. I'm trying to see something here. This was the only time a person was a person that was drafted. Every person that was announced in this round of the draft shifted the brand. So every other round did not go like that. Trying to see what's next. I think that was that. Yeah, that was round 4. Okay. Sorry, I tend to forget. It was so much. We got the next match, which was Rhea Ripley and Nikki defending the women's tag team championships against Tamina and Natalya. Remember those two names because that's going to be. I'm going to be discussing them in a minute. This match was a quick. It was an okay match. It had potential to be a good match, but it was just a little quick. But it didn't really last long. But your winners would be Rhea Ripley and Nikki. We'll get the 5th round of the draft that saw Karrion Kross getting drafted to Raw, which means he stays on Raw. Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo was drafted to SmackDown. Alexa Bliss was drafted to Raw, which means she stays on Raw, and Cesaro was drafted to SmackDown, which means he stays on SmackDown. Now, I will touch on just one thing about this, was that I was hoping that either Keith Lee or Karrion Kross was going to one of the other brands, because I feel like one needed to be on SmackDown. I didn't care who it was, but it was understandable. I understand like when you get this bonus round in the draft, you'll see why. I understand why they did what they did with Keith Lee on being on Raw. But I felt like Karrion Kross should have went to SmackDown, because you both got them build up as a monster, being these monster heels, and it's all supposed to lead to the championship, right? Or a championship. And eventually it's supposed to lead them to the WWE championship if they're going to be on Raw. But I don't know how they're going to do that, but hopefully they figure it out. We got Goldberg and Bobby Lashley promo, with Goldberg basically coming out once again accusing Bobby Lashley of doing what he did on purpose, and that he said, you know, you had the audacity to say that what happened to what you did to my son was just a misunderstanding. Bobby Lashley came out to defend himself, saying that it was a misunderstanding, and that the misunderstanding was that he didn't know who was attacking him. He just knew that while he was attacking Goldberg, someone attacked him from behind, so he just grabbed him and put him in a hurt lock, and he implored Goldberg to reconsider and think about what he would do if the shoe was on the other foot, that you was beating him up and somebody just jumped you from behind off the barricade. But before this, Bobby Lashley agreed to a match with Goldberg at Crown Jewel to have them fight in a no holds barred match, which was weird coming from Bobby, because Goldberg was like, "Thank you. Now I got a license. Now I can kill you. Now I can basically kill you in this match." But it was like, it was weird. Why would you have Bobby be the one to make the match a no holds barred match? But it is what it is. And then back to what I was saying, how he was saying, imagine somebody attack you from behind. This was just a ploy to, like, the signal from Bobby Lashley to have the Hurt Business attack, the Hurt Business of Cedric Alexander and Benjamin attack Goldberg. This was signifying that I guess they really are back together, and Goldberg would basically beat the hell out of both of them. The next match would be New Day versus Cedric Alexander and Benjamin. Before that, though, I do want to just real quickly note that we do have the King of the Ring happening, starting the King and Queen of the Ring starting this Friday. And it will carry over to Monday all the way up to the finals, which is Crown Jewel. They mentioned that, so I just mentioned it. This was a very quick match. It wasn't super long, and they went back and forth a little bit, but the New Day ended up getting a quick victory here. We get an Arcade Bro promo, basically, them coming out. I forgot that they made a challenge. Earlier, it was a backstage promo. They made a challenge to, Randy Orton made a challenge to Omos to fight in a one-on-one match. And this promo was basically them coming out to see was Omos was going to answer that challenge. Omos basically came out seething while AJ Styles basically talked and said that why would Omos need to answer the challenge, because we already did this and doing that, and then at Crown Jewel we're going to take the titles from you. But right when Omos was getting ready to say so, a fight broke out, and basically they was brawling, and Omos basically helped clear the ring. I think AJ got cleared out by Randy Orton, and Omos cleared out Riddle, and then they was coming face to face like they was about to have that match, but Randy Orton with RKO AJ Styles to lead the ring, signifying that this was just a ploy to RKO AJ Styles. We'll get round 6 of the draft, which it saw Carmella being drafted to Raw, much to Corey Graves' chagrin. Ridge Holland from NXT. This is your next NXT caller. Ridge Holland from NXT was drafted to SmackDown from NXT. Gable Stevenson, the Olympic gold medalist that made a cameo appearance earlier in the year, or I think it was like last month, was drafted to Raw. So they called him to the main roster already. And Sami Zayn was drafted to SmackDown, which means he stays on SmackDown. This was like your last. This was the last of the draft, but you would get your bonus draft. The bonus draft, you had the main event, Bianca Belair versus Charlotte Flair. That match was a good match up until the point when it ended up in a DQ, which gave Bianca Belair the win, and because Becky Lynch pulled Bianca out the ring and started beating her up, which then caused Sasha to come out and beat up both Bianca and Becky, while Charlotte just faded out of existence, and basically Sasha standing tall to end the show. We do got a bonus round I want to get to real quick. The bonus round draft saw Liv Morgan being moved to Raw, Daniel Brooks staying on Raw, Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode moves to Raw, Jackson Riker stays on Raw, Veer will stay on Raw, Mia Yim will move to Raw, Tamina moves to Raw, Tegan Knox moves to Raw. Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander will stay on Raw. The Miz will stay on Raw as well, with Santi Blackheart staying on SmackDown, Nat staying on SmackDown, Jinder Mahal and Sankey moving to SmackDown. So, in all, this was a great show. 8 big ups, and yeah, stay tuned for the next one. Peace.